I discovered my wife's affair in the most unexpected way, through a phone call from a woman I'd never met, on a Tuesday morning that started like any other. The coffee maker was gurgling in the kitchen, our yellow lab Cooper was sprawling across my feet, and I was scrolling through my phone when it rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Is this John? The woman's voice was tight, controlled anger barely contained beneath a veneer of politeness. Yeah, who's this? My name is Patricia. Patricia Gray. I think we need to talk about our spouses. Those words hit me like cold water. My name is John, and at that moment, standing in our Brooklyn apartment with morning light filtering through the windows, I had no idea my entire life was about to fracture. I'd been a firefighter for 17 years, seen countless disasters, pulled people from burning buildings, but nothing prepared me for what came next. I don't understand, I said carefully. Your wife is Miranda, correct? The tutor? My stomach dropped. Yes. She's been seeing my husband. Well, for about 8 months now. I stood there, frozen, while Patricia proceeded to lay out evidence with the precision of a prosecutor. Dates, times, hotel receipts she'd found. My Miranda, my wife of nearly 20 years, had been spending her Tuesday and Thursday afternoons not with students, but with Walt Gray, the father of one of those students. A kid named Tyler that she'd been tutoring for almost a year. The words, father of one of her students, echoed in my mind. This wasn't some random man she'd met at a coffee shop or a colleague from a conference. This was someone who'd invited her into his home, trusted her with his child's education, and then violated every boundary that relationship should have held sacred. And Miranda had done the same. I thought you should know, Patricia said, her voice cracking slightly. I found text messages. Lots of them. After we hung up, I sat on our worn couch for what felt like hours but was probably 20 minutes. Cooper nudged my hand with his wet nose, sensing something was wrong. 20 years. We'd built a life together in this apartment, raised our 2 kids here. Emma was now in college and Jake was finishing high school. 2 decades of memories, and suddenly I was questioning all of it. But as I sat there in shock, fragments of the past few months began clicking into place like pieces of a puzzle I'd been too blind to see. Miranda and I had met in our mid-20s at a friend's barbecue in Prospect Park. She'd been finishing her teaching degree, and I was a rookie firefighter still getting used to the demanding schedule. We'd connected over our shared love of old movies and our mutual friend's terrible potato salad. 6 months later, I proposed on the Brooklyn Bridge at sunset. It was cheesy, but it was us. Our early years were good, great even. We scraped together enough for a down payment on our apartment in Brooklyn, a 2-bedroom place that was small but ours. When Emma was born, we painted her room yellow together, arguing playfully about whether Big Bird or Tweety Bird was the superior yellow character. Jake came 3 years later, and suddenly our little apartment was full of noise, toys, and love. Miranda had built her tutoring business slowly, starting with a few students here and there, gradually building a reputation among Brooklyn's private school families. She was good at what she did, patient, creative, able to connect with kids who struggled in traditional classroom settings. By the time our kids were in middle school, she was making decent money, enough that we weren't living paycheck to paycheck anymore. I worked my way up through the fire department, moving from engine company to ladder company, earning certifications, taking on more responsibility. The schedule was brutal sometimes, 24-hour shifts, the constant danger, the things you see that stay with you. But I loved the work, loved the brotherhood of the firehouse, loved knowing I was helping people on their worst days. We settled into a rhythm over the years. Tuesday and Thursday evenings, Miranda had her tutoring sessions. I'd handle dinner for Jake, walk Cooper, maybe catch a game on TV. Weekends were for family, brunch at our favorite diner, walks through Prospect Park, movie nights on the couch. We weren't perfect, but we were solid. Or so I thought. Looking back now, I could see the signs I'd missed. They'd started about a year ago, subtle at first. Miranda had always been practical about her appearance for tutoring sessions. Professional but comfortable. Slacks and a nice blouse, minimal makeup, her dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. But around 10 months ago that changed. She started spending more time getting ready before her Tuesday and Thursday sessions. Big day. I'd asked one Tuesday morning, noticing she was wearing a new dress I hadn't seen before. Form-fitting, deep blue, definitely more date night than tutoring session. Oh, I have a consultation with a new family this afternoon, she'd said breezily. They're very particular apparently. Want to make a good impression. I'd thought nothing of it. That's what made it so insidious. Every lie had a reasonable explanation. The new clothes kept appearing. Designer jeans that hugged her figure. Silk blouses that probably cost more than we usually spent. She'd started wearing perfume on tutoring days, something sophisticated and expensive. Her hair was down more often, styled with loose waves that looked effortlessly beautiful but I knew took time to achieve. "You look nice," I'd said one Thursday, watching her check her reflection in the hallway mirror for the third time. "Thanks," she'd smiled, kissing my cheek. "The Klein family invited me to their daughter's graduation party next month. Want to look professional around all those Park Slope parents." Another lie, another reasonable explanation. She'd started going to the gym more regularly too. Not that she needed to, Miranda had always been beautiful to me, but suddenly she was obsessed with toning up, losing those last 10 pounds. She bought new workout clothes, started meal prepping, talked about feeling healthier and more energetic. "I'm not getting any younger," she joked when I'd commented on her new fitness routine. "40's coming up fast. Want to take care of myself." I'd supported it, proud of her dedication. What husband wouldn't be happy that his wife was feeling good about herself? Then there were the phone habits. Miranda had never been glued to her phone before, but suddenly it was always nearby, always face down on whatever surface she'd set it on. She'd started taking calls in the other room, claiming it was parents discussing their children's progress and she wanted privacy to speak candidly. "Everything okay?" I'd asked one evening after she'd spent 20 minutes in our bedroom on a call, her voice too low for me to hear through the door. "Fine," she'd said, emerging with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Just a difficult parent situation. You know how it is." I didn't actually, but I'd nodded sympathetically. The Tuesday and Thursday pattern should have been the biggest red flag, but it was hidden in plain sight. She'd been tutoring on those days for years, it was her established schedule, her routine. When she started coming home later, 6 p.m. instead of 4:30 p.m., she had explanations ready. Traffic was terrible. Tyler needed extra help on his calculus homework. The parents wanted to discuss his progress, and you know how these conversations go on. Tyler. Walt and Patricia's son. A 15-year-old kid struggling with math who needed a tutor. Such a mundane, normal reason for Miranda to be in that house, to interact with that family. Walt was probably home sometimes when she arrived or left. They probably made small talk about Tyler's progress, about school, about nothing important. And somewhere in those innocent interactions lines got crossed. The professional relationship between a tutor and a student's parent should have been a fortress wall. Miranda was being trusted with someone's child, with their education, with access to their home. That trust was supposed to be sacred, unbreakable. And both she and Walt had shattered it. What made it worse was knowing that Tyler was caught in the middle of this. The kid just needed help with math, and his tutor and his father had turned that simple, innocent situation into the catalyst for destroying two families. When everything came out, Tyler would know. He'd have to live with the knowledge that his calculus homework was the excuse his father used to cheat on his mother. There were other signs too, smaller but still there. Miranda had become more critical of me, nitpicking things that had never bothered her before. The way I loaded the dishwasher. My tendency to leave my boots by the door instead of in the closet. My work stories from the firehouse that she used to find entertaining but now seemed to tune out. "Can we talk about something other than work?" she'd snapped one evening when I was telling her about a challenging rescue. I've heard enough about fires and emergencies for one day. I'd been hurt but chalked it up to stress. She was working a lot, dealing with demanding parents, carrying the mental load of managing multiple students' educational progress. I'd backed off, tried to be more present, more attentive to her needs. What I didn't realize was that she was creating distance, making it easier to justify what she was doing. If she could convince herself I was inattentive, boring, too focused on my job, then maybe the affair was more justifiable in her mind. She'd also started suggesting I pick up extra shifts at the firehouse. "We could use the money for Jake's college fund," she'd said. "And you love the guys there anyway. Why not spend more time doing what you love?" More time away from home meant more freedom for her, more opportunities to be with Walt without worrying about me noticing she was gone longer than she should be. The sex between us hadn't stopped, which was perhaps the cruelest part. She'd still initiate sometimes, still respond when I did. But there was something missing, a disconnect I couldn't quite name. She was physically present but emotionally distant, going through the motions of intimacy without the connection we'd once had. "Is everything okay?" I'd asked one night after she'd turned away immediately after, claiming to be tired. "I'm fine, John. Just exhausted. You know how it is." But I didn't know. I didn't know anything apparently. The biggest sign I missed, the one that haunts me most, was her sudden interest in trying new things in bed. Positions we'd never done, requests for things that were out of character for her. At the time, I'd been thrilled, thinking maybe we were entering a new phase of our relationship, reigniting the spark that decades of marriage and parenting can sometimes dim. Now I understood she was practicing, or perhaps bringing home things Walt had introduced her to. The thought made me sick. All of these signs scattered over nearly a year, and I'd missed every single one. Or maybe I'd seen them but chosen not to see what they meant. It's easier to accept comfortable lies than face painful truths. Miranda had counted on that, counted on my trust, my busy schedule, my tendency to take her at her word because why wouldn't I? She was my wife of 20 years. Cooper had known something was wrong before I did. Dogs have instincts about these things. On the evenings Miranda would come home from her tutoring sessions. Cooper would sniff her extensively, his tail wagging but his body language uncertain. He'd stick close to me afterward as if reassuring himself I was still there, still solid, still his primary person. Cooper's being clingy lately, I'd mentioned to Miranda once. He's just getting older, she'd said dismissively. Dogs get more attached as they age. Even the dog's intuition I'd explained away. Sitting on that couch after Patricia's call, all of these moments cascaded through my mind like a highlight reel of my own willful blindness. Every excuse I'd accepted, every lie I'd believed, every sign I'd rationalized away. The new clothes, the perfume, the phone habits, the distance, the schedule that gave her every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon to be with another man, it was all so obvious now. And the fact that it was Walt, specifically, a parent, someone who should have been off limits for so many reasons, made it feel like a double violation. Miranda hadn't just betrayed our marriage, she betrayed the professional ethics of her career, the trust that family had placed in her, and the innocence of a teenager who just needed help with calculus. I didn't confront Miranda immediately. That was my first strategic decision. Instead, I called my buddy Marcus from the firehouse who had a friend who was a private detective. Not because I doubted Patricia, her pain had been too raw to be fabricated, but because I needed documentation. If this was going where I thought it was going, I needed evidence. The detective, a woman named Rachel Torres, was efficient. Within a week, she had photographs, more hotel records, and even captured them meeting at a small cafe in Park Slope. Miranda would tell me she was meeting with parents or going to educational seminars. She'd leave our apartment with her teaching materials, kiss me goodbye, and spend hours with this man. What gutted me most wasn't just the betrayal, it was how seamlessly she'd woven the lies into our daily life. She'd come home, tell me about her day, her students, her consultations. She'd ask about my shifts, laugh at my stories from the firehouse, make dinner while I walked Cooper. We'd watch TV together, discuss Jake's college applications, debate whether we should finally renovate the bathroom. Normal life, except none of it was real. I finally confronted her on a Thursday evening. I'd taken the day off without telling her. When she returned home at 6 p.m., 2 hours after she'd said her tutoring session would end, I was sitting at the kitchen table with a folder in front of me. "How was your day?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "Exhausting. Tyler is struggling with calculus and we went through practice problems for hours." She set her bag down, heading to the refrigerator. "I'm starving." "That's interesting," I said quietly. "Because according to this, you were at the Fulton Hotel in Manhattan. Room 412. I've never seen someone's face drain of color so quickly." She froze, one hand still on the refrigerator door. "John. 20 years, Miranda. 20 years." What followed was a conversation I wouldn't wish on anyone. She cried, she apologized, she tried to explain. Walt had been charming, attentive, made her feel young again. It had started innocently, conversations after tutoring sessions, then coffee, then more. She claimed it meant nothing, that it was a mistake, that she wanted to fix this. But here's what she didn't know. I'd already spoken to a divorce attorney. I'd already moved money from our joint accounts into a separate one. I'd already documented everything. I'd learned something in 20 years as a firefighter. When you see flames, you don't wait for them to spread. You act. "Do you love him?" I asked her directly. She hesitated too long before saying no. That hesitation told me everything. "Does he love you?" I don't know. He's married, John. He has a family. "So do you," I said quietly. Over the next few weeks, the situation spiraled in ways neither of us anticipated. Miranda ended things with Walt, or tried to. He didn't take it well. Patricia, meanwhile, filed for divorce immediately. Their marriage imploded spectacularly, and apparently Walt blamed Miranda for everything, claiming she'd pursued him, that she'd been the aggressor. Typical. I filed for divorce a month after the confrontation. Miranda begged me to reconsider, to try counseling, to give her another chance. But every time I looked at her, all I could see were the lies. Every Tuesday and Thursday for 8 months. Every time she'd kissed me goodbye before meeting him. Every family dinner where she'd sat across from our kids, pretending everything was fine. The divorce proceedings were surprisingly amicable on the surface. We split everything fairly, the apartment would be sold, proceeds divided. Custody of Jake wasn't an issue since he was 17 and could decide for himself where to stay. He chose to split his time, though I could tell he was hurt and confused. Emma, away at college, was devastated when we told her over video call. But I had one card left to play, and this is where my revenge took shape. Miranda's entire tutoring business relied on reputation. She worked with wealthy Brooklyn families, charging premium rates for her services. Word of mouth was everything in that world. I hadn't told anyone outside our immediate circle about the affair. Not our friends, not our neighbors, not the other parents whose kids she tutored. But Walt's son Tyler? He was part of a tight-knit community of students at an expensive private school. Walt and Patricia's divorce wasn't quiet. Patricia made sure everyone knew why their marriage ended. And when those parents heard that their children's tutor had been having an affair with one of the fathers, a father whose child she was teaching, the reaction was swift. I didn't have to say a word. The network did it for me. Within 2 months of our separation, Miranda had lost 80% of her clients. Parents didn't want someone with questionable judgment around their teenagers. They didn't want the drama. They especially didn't want someone who'd gotten involved with a client. Her income evaporated. The tutoring business she'd built over 15 years, gone. She tried to restart in different neighborhoods, but Brooklyn's wealthy parent network is smaller than you'd think. Word spread. She became toxic by association. Meanwhile, Walt's life wasn't going much better. Patricia took him for everything she could in their divorce. She was a corporate lawyer and she was ruthless. He lost his house, a significant portion of his assets, and shared custody became a battlefield. Tyler, their son, refused to speak to him for months after learning the truth. And Miranda and Walt? After all that drama, after destroying 2 marriages, they didn't even end up together. Walt wanted nothing to do with her once the fallout began. He blamed her for his divorce, for his son's anger, for his destroyed reputation. She'd reached out to him several times according to Rachel, who I kept on retainer for a few more months, but he'd blocked her number. The irony wasn't lost on me. She'd thrown away 20 years for someone who didn't even want her when the fantasy crashed against reality. A year after the divorce, my life had stabilized into a new normal. I moved to a smaller apartment in Cobble Hill, closer to the firehouse. Emma came home for holidays and breaks. Jake graduated high school and headed to college in Boston. I dated occasionally, nothing serious. Work kept me busy and honestly I was okay with quiet. I heard through mutual friends that Miranda had started seeing a therapist, that she was working on herself. She'd moved out of Brooklyn entirely, starting over in Queens where no one knew her history. I was glad she was trying to rebuild, even if it wasn't my concern anymore. The strange thing about betrayal is how it changes you in ways you don't expect. I became more cautious, yes, but also more clear-eyed about what I wanted. I didn't want easy lies and comfortable illusions. I wanted authentic connection, even if that meant being alone for a while. Marcus asked me once if I regretted how things went down, if I wished I'd tried to save the marriage, gone to counseling, fought harder. No, I said simply. She made her choice. I just made sure there were consequences. Some people might think what happened to Miranda was too harsh, that losing her business, her reputation, her marriage, and ending up alone was excessive punishment for an affair. But I didn't orchestrate her professional downfall, I simply didn't protect her from it. I didn't spread rumors or sabotage her directly. I just let the truth exist in the world and let people make their own decisions about what that truth meant to them. She'd counted on my silence, on my desire to avoid embarrassment, to keep our private pain private. Maybe the old John would have done that. But the John who got that phone call from Patricia Gray, who spent a week walking around with the knowledge of his wife's betrayal before confronting her, who watched her lie to his face when he gave her one last chance to come clean, that John was done protecting someone who'd shown him no loyalty. The detective Rachel told me something I think about sometimes. She said most affairs end before they're discovered. The guilt or the logistics or the fading excitement brings them to a natural conclusion, and the betrayed spouse never knows. But in this case, Miranda and Walt were still actively involved when Patricia found those messages. There was no end in sight. If Patricia hadn't called me, how long would it have continued? Another 8 months? Another year? How many more Tuesdays and Thursdays would I have kissed my wife goodbye, not knowing she was kissing someone else hello an hour later? That question used to haunt me. Now it just makes me grateful for Patricia's courage in making that call, grateful that I found out when I did, grateful that I didn't waste more years on a fiction. Cooper nuzzles my hand as I sit on my small balcony, watching the Brooklyn sunset. 20 years of marriage, reduced to photo albums and divided furniture, and a dog who doesn't understand why his family doesn't live together anymore. It's not the ending I imagined when I was 25 and convinced I'd found my forever person. But it's honest. And after everything, honesty feels like the most valuable thing I have. Miranda called me last month, almost 2 years after the divorce finalized. She wanted to apologize again, to tell me she was doing better, working through her issues. She asked if we could have coffee sometime, talk about what went wrong, get closure. I politely declined. Some chapters don't need to be reopened. Some endings are final not because they're cruel but because they're necessary. She wanted absolution and I understood that impulse. But I wasn't her priest and I wasn't responsible for her healing. I'd moved on. Not perfectly, not completely, but forward. And that was enough. Thank you for watching the video to the end. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. A playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to is now displayed on the screen. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.